Back in the 70s, when I was a teenager, I had a girlfriend named Daisy who was a neighborhood babysitter. Everyone on my block used her to watch their kids when they would go out. There was no need for her to have a regular job because she made good money babysitting. I would usually stop by after the kids went to sleep and hang out with her until the parents got back, where I'd quietly make my exit and wait for her outside to walk her home. I remember that this was a couple of days after Halloween 1977. I'll never forget that year's Halloween, because that was the night I was clipped by a drunk driver while I was riding my bike. The guy ended up going to jail, but that's another story. The point is, I would not be visiting Daisy that night because of my broken arm and fractured rib, but she said that she would call me after the kids went to sleep. So I spent the evening in my living room watching television, waiting for Daisy to call me. I would say it was around 8:30 when the phone rang. Hello.
Hey, it's me.
What's up, babe? Did the little rascal finally pass out?
Yeah, Mrs. Clark let him eat all of his leftover candy before I got here, and he was bouncing off the walls for a while.
Sounds like fun.
Totally. But it's pretty funny to see little Dennis when he's all hyper. He talks so fast that it sounds like he's speaking another language.
Is that so?
Yeah, but anyway, how's your arm?
It still sucks. Itches like crazy, and when I try to scratch at it, I end up moving it, and that's when I feel the pain come back.
Ooh, jeez.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm just grateful it's my left arm, and that my dad does a really bad job at hiding his dirty magazines.
Oh, shut up, you perv.
So, what are you wearing?
I'm not answering that. Use your imagination.
Be careful what you wish for. I might just...
Shh. I think I heard something outside.
Very funny, Daisy.
No, I'm serious. I think I just heard someone walking around outside.
I could tell by the sound of her voice, Daisy was a little creeped out. Maybe the Clarks are home?
No, they said they wouldn't be back until 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'm staying the night here.
Okay, don't freak out. Maybe it's just a stray cat or something.
It didn't sound like a cat. Just stay on the phone with me while I go check it out.
Okay. A couple of seconds went by, and the next thing I heard was the sound of glass shattering followed by Daisy screaming at the top of her lungs. And the line went dead. I quickly got up, left my house, and made my way over to the Clark's residence as quickly as I could. They lived at the very end of the block, so it took me about 5 minutes to get there. When I arrived, the front door was open, and I could see Daisy lying face down on the living room floor in a pool of blood. I quickly got to her and turned her over with my good arm. She had been stabbed in the chest. At first, I thought Daisy was dead, but I soon realized she was just unconscious. I applied pressure to her wound and looked behind me to see that Dennis was by the stairs. He had a look of absolute terror on his face. "Dennis, buddy, I need you to call the police. Tell them that someone broke in and attacked Daisy." I actually knew Dennis very well. My dad and his dad were very good friends. So Dennis wasn't afraid of me, and he also wasn't a complete moron like most kids on my block. He did what he was told. While I was trying to stop the bleeding, I happened to see that one of the large living room windows had been completely shattered. That was where the attacker must have entered, and then left through the front door. The police and ambulance showed up a few minutes later, and Daisy was rushed to the emergency room. The police contacted the Clarks to explain the situation, and Dennis ended up staying at my house until they got back. When Daisy finally came to, she was hysterical and could not tell the police any details about her attacker. It was completely random. Nothing like this had ever happened in my neighborhood before. This incident pretty much destroyed our entire community. Nobody trusted anyone after this. A rumor even started that I was the one who attacked Daisy that night. Unfortunately, Daisy ended up suffering from mental complications brought on by the trauma of this event. Our relationship fell apart, and she moved away a year later. I'm sad to say that she developed a drug addiction, which led to her taking her own life in 1983. The police never found out who the intruder was or what his motives were. Nothing from the house had been taken. It's truly a shame that they never caught the person. Because of their actions, they destroyed a wonderful community. And I can't imagine the anguish that Daisy's parents went through watching their daughter turn from a happy, normal girl into an emotional wreck. It's sad, but this is the world we live in. I don't advocate that you live your life in fear. That's not healthy. But be aware that there are people out there who are just pure evil, and sometimes they don't have a reason for doing the horrible things they do.
Back when we moved into our house, we were introduced to all of our neighbors by them coming to our house with cookies or brownies, kinda like they do in the movies. This was a nice, quiet, middle-class neighborhood, made up of mostly older white people and new families. I mention that because we were the only black family in the neighborhood. No black wives, husbands, not even adopted children. We didn't really find it strange though. It was just very clear that we were different. I was about 13 years old at the time, and my brother was 15. Our backyard was about a half an acre and is fenced, but it's also connected to two other houses' backyards. Each one is about half the size of ours, but we all have separating fences. So to paint a picture, there's a T-shaped fence separating our backyards. The house to the left was the home of an older man named Tom. He kinda reminded me of Willie Nelson, but without the cool pigtails. He liked to be outside shirtless and usually with a denim vest, no matter what the weather was. He was a pretty well-built man, but visibly kinda frail. We actually found him to be quite funny, in a creepy old guy type of way. As I got older, he had started to make comments. I played in the backyard with my dogs a lot, and Tom could see me in his living room window that faced his backyard. Whenever I glanced over, I could always see him in the window, just standing there watching me. When he noticed that I saw him, he'd come out and talk to me. I would try to get away before he would come out, but sometimes I was just too slow. I didn't want to make it too obvious, so I would just walk. But if I didn't make it inside, he'd yell for me to come back. I never got too close to the fence though. I'd speak from a distance. He would ask me about school, what grade I was in, tell me I was pretty, and ask if I was old enough to have a boyfriend. Also if I had an older sister or older friends that looked like me. It was pretty weird, but I'd just laugh it off. But after a few questions, he'd stop talking to me and just stare at me, silently. I would always give an excuse about needing to go inside, and he would nod and stand at the fence and just watch me walk back into the house. This kind of thing happened almost weekly. My mom really loves to decorate, so she changes the house decor every few months or so. It's pretty annoying actually. During one of her designing sprees, she had decided to get a new sliding glass door for the back porch, which required her to take the curtains down in the living room. It took forever to get them installed, but she figured that there was no point in putting the curtains back up if we'd have to take them back down again. Fine, I guess. Now, our family TV was in the living room. I didn't have a TV in my room, so I'd often watch TV late into the night in the living room with my brother. One night my brother went to bed pretty early, so I decided to watch TV by myself that night. Right around midnight or so, I had turned off the TV so I could go to bed. I got up from the couch, turned off the light, and then turned around to see another light on. Not in my house, but in Tom's house. It was in his living room, and he was there, just standing in the window watching me. I later told my parents about it, but they just shrugged it off. I'm a pretty anxious soul, so I often just chalk things up to my anxiety. Fine. Not too long afterwards, though, my dogs had started to get sick. I would take them out to play and they'd start throwing up or have diarrhea. We knew that it wasn't their food because we didn't give them anything new. We also threw away the dog treats that we recently bought just in case that was the problem, but it didn't stop. I had started to notice that every time I let them out alone, they'd always run straight over to Tom's fence, jumping up and down and wagging their tails. He would slowly walk outside, reach over the fence, and then feed them his treats, which was really odd because Tom didn't even have a dog. I told my parents, and my dad went to talk to him, telling him the dogs were getting sick. Tom had apologized, and he had also stopped feeding them, and they got better. A few weeks later, I was coming home from school. My brother was in the grade above me, and I was a senior, so he was in college at the time. Whenever I got home, no one else would be home for a few more hours. I had a routine. I would put my book bag downstairs, then change clothes, let the dogs out of their cages on the porch, get a snack, and then let them back in. For some strange reason, I was just unusually excited to see my dogs that day. So instead of going upstairs, I went straight to the back porch. I had got to the door to open it, and I then saw Tom just sitting on the ground right in front of the dogs' cages. I froze. He didn't see me though. I looked over to see if the door was locked, but it wasn't. I began to lock it as slowly as possible so it didn't make a noise, but it did. Tom then looked over and he saw me standing there. I ran upstairs to go call my parents. My mom's a nurse, so she didn't have her phone on, and my dad just never answered the phone. I didn't really think that it was serious enough to call the police, so instead I just hid. After about a moment though, I had then heard Tom knock on the door. It wasn't loud or aggressive though. It was almost like friendly, like he just wanted to talk. I tried my dad's phone yet again and he then answered. I was crying hysterically and I had then told him that Tom was on the porch. He said he'd head home, but he was about an hour away. I just sat in my room just waiting for my dad. The knocking stopped. All I remember was that my dad got home and Tom was gone. I don't really know what happened between Tom and my dad, but he did stop coming outside and talking to me. He never did stop watching though, always standing in his living room. Sometimes I'd see him through the window and he would wave at me, but always with the light on, just so I knew that he was still there. It was pretty creepy.